success leaves clues, right? That's true in sales as well. There are certain best practices of world-class sales organizations that you can adopt right now in your business to drastically improve your results. In this video, we're going to share what those best practices are and how you can leverage them to accelerate the revenue growth of your business. I'm LizJSimpson, founder of The Big Money Movement, accompanied by
Cheryl Perks
and Heather Petherick,
our esteemed coaches here at The Big Money Movement. So I want to talk about world-class sales organizations. Too often, I think that small businesses miss out on the clues in world-class, larger Fortune, 1,000 companies. And so I think that there are things that we can look at larger organizations and adapt to our smaller businesses. First and foremost, if we're going to talk about a world-class sales organization, the number one point in my mind is training. You have to invest in your sales people, right? And I know that we're talking about sales teams, but I just want to underscore, for small businesses, training your people is so paramount, period, point blank period, regardless of the role. So making sure that we prioritize training. I know for myself, and I don't know, I guess we can kind of go into story time now since we're talking about training. When we have women who come into the Big Money Movement and we talk about our sales strategies, I think sometimes people think, oh, Liz, Cheryl, Heather, you're great at sales because you have a natural personality for it. Right. Or you're just like, you were just born a great salesperson, right? And so I'm like, no, do you know this has been decades of training and major corporations investing in me and reading books and, kind of like sanitizing my mind, if you will, because I remember when I was listening to tapes over and over, and then I was listening to CDs in the car, and like, just as Zig Ziglar says, like, motivation is like bathing, like you need to do it daily.
Yes.
So do you want to just talk about like this investment and the training that it has taken for you to be the salesperson you are today?
Yeah, I love what you said, Liz, about sanitizing your mind, because that's definitely, it's a great tagline for my own evolution in sales.
Oh.
When I started my business, I had maybe the worst opinion of sales. And I was distracting myself with all the things, avoiding sales, until I found myself on the broke bus and had to really face facts that if my business was going to thrive and grow, I need to get good at sales. And so I applied this. Once I got over myself, I started to really study the art and science of sales, right? I was reading and consuming and attending every sales training seminar I could get my hands around.
Right.
And what I started to find was there was definitely two schools of thought. And I'm going to call them in very general buckets, like the old mentality of sales, of like hunter-gatherer. It's a win-lose. I'm going to convince my buyer, and that means I win their cash and they lose their money. Right. This real oppositional way of approaching sales is dominating. Right. And I was like, you know what? That is not me. And if I have to do that, then maybe I better get a job because this is not for me. Yeah. But I also found, thank goodness, this other emerging field of sales, which was much more collaborative, much more, I'm going to say, human and authentic, which released this objective of win-lose and more partnership with the client, of getting, having conversations where I could really get under the layers of what are their goals, what is the buyer's needs and challenges, and how can I meet that with my service. And in many ways, sanitizing my own energy and mindset around not that scarcity of I need to get a yes, but is my offer in highest service to the client?
Oh my gosh, breathe on that.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's it.
Yeah. Or not. Right.
Yeah.
Or not. And being okay that sometimes a no is the right answer. Right. And it doesn't mean that I've done anything wrong or failed in the sales process, but truly from a place of unattachment, if that's truly the right answer for the buyer, then I can release that and we can, carry on.
Yes.
And so when I found that sort of new body of sales, I could really get on board with that because that is me, right? Being authentic, being, really being of service to the client. And that's when sales for me, it was a whole new world of sales that I could embrace, that I could champion, and that I could really sink my teeth into. And that's when my business started to take off. And it's something that I'm passionate about sharing with other women, that we may come with this sort of emotional baggage or trauma around sales, let's be honest, because of this old school thinking of what it is or isn't. But there's a whole nother way of doing sales that I'm going to humbly say is more effective, frankly.
I was literally in my mind thinking it's so much more effective.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And what I love about what you just said is that even with the best intentions, you still had to sanitize your mind and learn a process. And I think too often we think, oh, if a person has the best intentions, or if a person's an extrovert, which I know, Cheryl, you can sink your teeth in that in a second. But like, if a person has the best intentions, or if I'm an extrovert, I will just naturally be able to navigate these conversations well. And I just, as a salesperson, I feel so insulted by that thought process, because you can have the best intentions, but that doesn't mean you have the tools to navigate the conversation.
Right. That's right.
You know, sales really is mastering psychology, human behavior, communications. And so it's, all right, how do I keep the best of intentions, but how do I get the tools and the skill sets of language and communication and reading personality so that those intentions are translated through the words that I say and the actions that I take in this process? I just love that you said that.
Yeah, very cool. I'm going to add in here too that as I've studied sales, there are different energetic levels of sales.
Come on now.
And I can see how, I can see it in myself, like my former self and my present day self. And I can also see it in some of the women that we are honored to serve in the big money movement. But there's an evolution, right? And I would call it like the scarcity mindset of sales, where it is really that win-lose dichotomy in a sales conversation. And then there's higher elevations of energy, like higher vibration, more authentic, more service-based energy. And I'm going to call it like the Yoda Zen master of sales at the highest level, which is truly about service. I don't care if it's a yes or a no, but what is actually going to be in best service to the client. Right. And constantly auditing how you're showing up in a sales conversation, and knowing in any moment and in any conversation, you can choose a higher level of energy and show up more authentically, less attached, and more service-based. And I love sharing that with women, right?
Okay, I just have to jump in that for 2 seconds, because when I was in sales, we call that commission breath.
Yes.
Like that end of the month, like, please, I'm just following up, I'm checking in, and like I'm hard closing.
You got a deal. It expires in 2 days.
Yes, like I have to close this by months in. And to your point, that energy, buyers feel that, right?
Yeah.
But I have to just underscore this, because we have so many entrepreneurs who listen to us. As an entrepreneur in small business, when you really have bills to pay, right? Yeah. And you have serious overhead, it is mastery to know that, oh shoot, my mortgage is due. I need some deals to close, but somehow master your energy so that pressure is not felt.
It's not bleeding into the conversation.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
It's a skill set.
Is a good word.
Yeah, it's a toxin that comes off. Yeah. I think training is so paramount to that. Anything else on training, Cheryl, you want to add?
Yeah. So I completely agree that there's so much training. Like my overnight success took 25 years, right? I mean, it's still a work in progress.
Right.
And so people do think that because they view you as an extrovert and that you have that energy level, that it comes naturally. And it doesn't. And I'll share that I literally was the shyest girl in the room growing up, to the point of not even wanting to ring the bell on the bus. And I just ride along with the next person, get off with them and walk back.
Like miles.
Miles. It didn't matter. Oh, I never figured out I should get off before the stop. That's a whole different conversation.
Like that blows my mind every time you say it.
It is unbelievable how debilitating it can be when you are in your own head.
Yeah.
And so I literally had to march my way from a mindset perspective, like you said, sanitize your mind and start taking action, and then pay attention to the actions that I was taking and celebrate when I was taking the action, right? So inspect what I was expecting.
Yeah.
So I could celebrate those actions, which weren't, hitting the ball out of the park immediately.
Yeah.
It was an activity. So having fun with it.
I also want to stand up for the shy girls in the room that think that they're never going to be good at sales. Because some of the most masterful salespeople I know are to this day true, like dyed-in-the-wool introverts. And the reason that they're so good at it is because sales really happens inside of an intimate conversation, right? A yes or a no. That discovery of whether my offering is a fit for your needs and goals, it's a single conversation. It's not a standing up at the stage in front of 100 people, which freaks introverts out.
Yes.
It is a sitting down across the table with sometimes 1 or 2 people and having a very focused conversation. And I find naturally, sometimes introverts, that's where they truly shine.
Yes, 100%. So I love this, talking about the training, sanitizing your energy, being committed to it, rethinking what sales truly is. These are best practices of world-class sales organizations. So we're gonna dive deeper. Once you have this world-class sales team that you know only gets there through training, we're going to give you some training on 4 tips to close sales. Click that next video and we'll see you there. Bye.